hikers who were hiking through Kurdistan and hiked into Iran.
Oh, no.
Right there. And then obviously got captured.
But it's Kurdistan that's in Iran.
Yeah, like Kurdistan, as you see, like
Meaning
goes
they're okay
over.
when you're on Kurdistan.
Yeah, they just
That's
walk.
so strange.
But like you said, it's like mountainous and
So that's why the security doesn't come up and like
it's beautiful
fuck
though.
people up.
Yeah.
You would just never think like Iran would let that happen.
No.
But
Just
that's
walk
crazy.
right in.
My friend Eric Zolliger, who was on episodes 163 and 164, he claims he's not a spy, but I don't know about that. But he was on a train in Turkey, going through Turkey, and his whole thing is he's lived in all these unrecognized territories.
Mm-hmm.
Like he at one point got on a jet ski with a random dude and became the ambassador from Liberland to Somaliland.
Oh.
Which, yeah, I mean, again.
That makes sense.
Definitely a spy. But like he was on a train through Turkey and he got banned from Turkey for life because when they went to take his ticket, they asked him where he was from and he said Kurdistan.
Oh no!
And they're like, "Sir, come with us."
Get off.
They're like, "That's not the country."
Wrong answer.
He's like, "Wait, but I was just there," and they're like, "You can't come here again."
Oh.
He's like banned.
That's
and I'm
sad.
like, I feel like there's more there.
Yeah, probably a little bit.
I feel like they had some info on you or something.
Probably
Like
a little bit.
I don't know about this guy.
Oh, that's funny.
But it's just so strange that something like that today exists because there's no groups that large around the world who don't have a country. There's no groups of like 35 million people
That's a good point.
who don't have a country.
Yeah.
But they do.
Yeah. In a way.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got their own flag. They've got their own
Yeah.
boundaries marked out. You know when you're entering Kurdistan.
Why does the U.S. not... I mean, we're supposed to be like the big swinging dick. We use them as an asset in fucking everything we do.
We absolutely, yeah.
So why doesn't... What's the whole holdup with going to the UN? Like, all right, come on.
I don't know. I'm sure that's probably low on the priority list for what we're dealing with.
But I would think I'm not going to say it's at the top of the list, but I would think it's not at the lowest because, again, these people are being used in active military.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like throw them a bone.
I know. And there's so much history there, too.
Yeah. I got to get a Kurdistan historian in here.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
you
something
totally
I've
should.
been meaning to do.
You totally should.
Alessia, we got to remind me, we got to scout some people on that.
Yeah.
I haven't done that. But anyway, so you were in Mosul 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And then any other cool sources in Mosul in 2009?
Yes,
All
I'm
right,
sure. No, I don't know. No,
go.
you can move on.
No. I need one or two.
Okay. Do you know who Mohammed? Let me see if I remember his name right. Mohammed, is it Izzat al-Dorey? Can you Google the playing cards? I think he was the aces. No, he was one of the top playing cards. Remember when we issued those playing cards in the war for people that we wanted to capture?
Yes.
Like Saddam Hussein was ace of spades or
Yes.
whatever. Al-Dorey was one of them.
Okay. So Mohammed Hamza Zerbrandi?
No, not him. We want Al-Dorey.
Is there a way we can do all Mohammed, the playing cards, Iraq? Al-Duri, D-U-R-I?
D-U-R-I, yeah.
All right, let's try this. Oh, wait, there's a picture of all the ones. See the fifth one?
This one right here?
Well, actually, stay on this. Can we see that?
I feel really old.
Let's zoom that. No, that's really small. Don't worry about it.
Well, so as you look for him, I had a source who was not recruited, who had him, who knew him. He was one of the top.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Antiquity.
Qusay Saddam Hussein,
Oh,
that's
there.
his son. Muhammad
It's all the way to the left. Is that
one?
it?
Is that Ibrahim
Al-Dorey,
Al-Duri?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So king
him.
of clubs.
So him. So I had a source who knew him, had him, talked to him regularly, and we were trying to capture him. Actually, I've never told this story. And I tried to get permission to like pass it to the special forces guys that we were working with to see if they could go, but he was in Syria. They were like, nope, we can't. And DIA just kept shutting it down. I was like, but look, like requirement, like playing card, like big deal. And I just got shot down. And I ended up just very quietly passing it over to some another unit to see if they could just action it themselves because DIA wouldn't do it. So that was kind of a bummer.
Did they action it themselves?
I don't know. I don't know.
What was his role again? RCC vice chairman? What's the RCC?
I don't know.
I'm going to guess that's Republic of something, but I don't know. I have no idea.
I don't remember. I just remember he was...
SSO and RCC.
Yeah, that was kind of a bummer.
Yeah, it says, like, Kamal Mustafa Abdallah Sultan al-Trinidi, it says Secretary of the Republican Guard and Special Republican Guard. So I wonder if that... I mean, he looks serious. He's wearing a beret.
Oh, yeah. I mean, berets make everybody more
Tough
badass,
for sure.
Yeah.
It's got to be frustrating, though, when you have a fish right on the hook and they say throw it back.
It was super, super frustrating. Yeah. And I even tried to get permission to, like, pass it to agency and, like, and I don't know what was going on back home, but people were like, nope. It was like a hard no. So here you go. Someone else, please go take it.
I wonder if maybe that guy was a source, double agent.
I don't know. Don't know. I will never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you, I mean, because you're there when we're knocking out all the former regime and everything, but was there ever thought in your head, like, yeah, we're taking out bad guys, for sure. No one's arguing that. Saddam was a bad guy. These guys are bad dudes. But, like, the people who are going to replace them are as bad and might be even worse.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the saying, like, you cut off the head of the serpent and a bunch more grow back.
Yep.
Absolutely.
It's got to be frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. There's a lot. In Intel in general, a lot of it is very frustrating. Especially like I said, like you throw on the layer of politics and you throw there's just so many moving pieces that you have no control over.
Yes.
That for a type A person, it's very frustrating.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I got to think that during this era, you're there when the experiment is going the wrong way, right? The insurgency, as we've highlighted all day today, is growing into what will become ISIS. I guess you got out right when ISIS was popping off, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So, also we're going to get to Afghanistan in a minute. Afghanistan, it's like, I talk about this all the time with people on the podcast. It's like unbelievable military operation for the first year and a half. Then we went to Iraq, to borrow Obama's line. I think he said this very well. Took our eye off the ball there. Yes. We see how that ends up and everything, because you start fighting 1.5 wars in a way, if you really want to say it, with the resources. But it's like, you're knocking people out at a time where shit is getting way worse, and the United States is there to quote unquote spread democracy. And this is where my question is. I've had other people in here, Andrew Bustamante comes to mind, talking about this with the idea where they talk about the idea of like how spreading democracy in certain places doesn't work. But the alternative is you have some sort of totalitarian rule, which in America, we don't like hearing that or whatever. But do you think that, maybe with like collegiate culture, there's a reality that some countries, they just are going to turn to that? And so maybe it's better to have the strong man with an arm that's not holding a machine gun versus, the one that is.
Yeah.
And it's the best of two evils.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, right? You could come up with any analogy. Dating, right? There are going to be people that are not going to be a good fit. They're not going to like you, right? It's the same thing. Like we value democracy. That's not going to be a good fit everywhere. It's just not. So sometimes the lesser of two evils is what we have to go with.
Yeah.
That's your point.
Yeah, I mean, you hear guys talk about like being there for the first election in Iraq and how, people were like holding, I think it was like the pink sticker or whatever, and they were so excited for it. So it's not like there's not an appetite for that among some people, but there's just factions that'll turn to,
it's
you
politics.
know what, this is what we know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look at any country that looks like it's on the verge of revolution, or look at the Arab Spring, right? Look at Iran. Look what's been going on there, how you've got these populations, probably North Korea and China too. Like you've got these populations, especially of the younger generation, who know or suspect what's out in the world, right? Maybe they have social media locked down. Maybe they don't have free access to internet, etc. But information gets there somehow. And you can see that they have an appetite for change, but it hasn't happened yet in any of these places, right? They've tried, but I think culturally sometimes, I don't know, you're just fighting history,
Yes.
generations of history.
That's a good way to put it.
Right?
That's a really good way to put it. Because it's like in America, our history is like 250 years.
I know. Ours is like this big.
We're missing a zero
Yeah.
on the end, or like two zeros.
Couple, yeah.
With some of these places. And it's like, oh, you're just gonna go in and change it. It's not just ingrained in culture. It's almost scientists are gonna yell at me for saying this because this isn't technically true. But in a way, it's literally like in the DNA. In some ways, it's just that's what's known.
It's a lot of it also learned behavior. Like if that's all you see, just like those poor kids I was talking about.
Yep.
If that's all you see and all you know, that's your culture. That's what your normal is. And if someone comes in and says, change it, it's just like going into a company, right? I go into a company and I'm like, okay, we need to change this, this, and this. Yep. It's not that easy. You have a culture to deal with, no matter who you're talking. If it's a country or a company, it's the same thing. You have a culture. My family, we have our own little culture, right? Our own traditions. It's all the same thing, just on a much bigger scale.
Right. You talked about those kids. You gave that visual 20, 30 minutes ago. The kids that would
line up,
walk by, and you're like, all they know is war.
Yeah.
Again, not to empathize with the terrorists or something, but to understand, like, isn't it easy to see how some of these kids, their whole childhood is filled with U.S. Armed Forces knocking down their door and checking everyone? Isn't it easy to see how they turn to terrorism?
Yeah. I mean, hearts and minds is a real thing.
Yep.
There's a reason you want to win hearts and minds. We could do better. We could do better.
What do you think held us back from doing that?
Politics, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if you have a pot of money and you need to you've got a war, 2 wars, are you going to put your pot of money in hearts and minds, or are you going to put it in trying to kill the bad guys and try to get the war over with faster? When you look at the priorities, it's just not high on the priority list. Should it be? Yes, absolutely. But how do you go about doing that, right? And not be just a cost center.
Yeah.
Right? It's hard to prove the ROI of something like that. Hey, we're gonna be cool to these kids, and they're not gonna blow us up when they grow up. How do you prove that?
Yep.
But I had a source meeting. This is fast forwarding to Afghanistan.
2011?
Yeah. I had this source meeting with somebody pretty well known, and they had children. And one of their children was a teenager. And this kid came in and we were chatting, just bullshitting. And I will never forget, she was telling a story about she was going somewhere. And she said, in like her best Valley Girl accent, I don't know how she got a Valley Girl accent, but she was like, oh my God. And then there was a rocket attack. And I was like, not today. But the way she said it was so like nonchalant. It was her norm.
Yeah.
And it just hit me so hard,
Yep.
It's just so annoying. Like
another rocket attack.
Right? And
That
for me,
is
I'm like,
wild.
right. I'm like, I can't sleep when there's a rocket attack and you're just annoyed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all she knew.
Well, that's the thing. That's the environment you grow up in. It becomes a norm. Death becomes something that's more, I hate to say it like this, it's more of a commodity around you. Mm-hmm. That's a horrible way to put it. But, us, that's a luxury we have. We get to live in the luxury of like, someone dies from something tragic. It's the worst thing ever. And statistically, it's happening. Something tragic is happening as a normal thing.
Right.
Constantly. Every day in places like that.
Yeah. I feel like for me, like the hearts and minds thing is really big. Every deployment that I had, I would find a local orphanage. Mm-hmm. And, well, maybe I had secretly tried to adopt a kid. That never worked. In Afghanistan, I had a source, a really high-ranking somebody say, like, I can get you a kid if you want. I was like, no, not illegally. I'm good. But I would always find an orphanage, and then I would have people from home I would ask them what they needed, and we would send, like, vans full of stuff to them. And then when I worked with sources, when I had the opportunity to spend time with their families, excuse me, I spent as much time as I could with those kids and with those families. And if I could leave an imprint, a positive imprint somehow of what being an American or working with Americans was, I really tried to do that. So there's the mission, right? And I wanted to debrief the person and and teach them tradecraft and do whatever I needed to do for that op. But on the same hand, like I just loved spending time with their families and their kids. There was one gentleman who he had a bunch of kids, and he kept, every time I met with him, he would say like they loved art and they just really loved art, but they didn't have money and blah, blah, blah. And he just he wasn't asking for anything. He was just in conversation. And so one time I ordered a whole bunch of art supplies from Amazon, had it delivered. And in one meeting, I gave him a ton of art supplies. And it wasn't anything that was going to like ID him or what, like the way I did it was smart. People can be quiet and I wasn't going to kill him. Anyway, so I gave him these 2 boxes of like art supplies, but again, local art supplies. It wasn't from America. Anyway, he cried, which made me cry because he was so excited how his kids were going to like receive it. And then the next time he came, he brought, and I still have it, he brought me, they had made me a book of art that they drew for me with all the art supplies that I had given them. And it's like one of my most treasured things because it's those memories and touching those people, those little people who are now big people, right? That I just hoped that I could influence somehow.
It comes across when I was talking to you off camera before doing this and in talking to you today. I don't say this as a shot to other spies I've had in here or whatever, but like it's a dangerous job, and there's highest stakes and there's things to be done, and that involves manipulation, coercion, all this stuff. It's not to say you didn't still have to do some of that in your job. I get that, but like it's very clear to me that you have the gene of like genuinely gives a fuck.
Yeah,
and that's not really like. And I'll put like Andrew Bustamante, who's a friend of mine, and says he's former CIA. Andy's there to do the job.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Andy doesn't feel it if like some kids die and stuff, but Andy is very much like, the world's a shitty place. You seem to be much more of in your role of an empath and feeling everything that happens around you. And I would imagine that just like he has skills that played well for him to be able to get people into his orbit, it's very clear these skills played well to people. They wanted you around. They wanted you like a member of the family in some of these cases.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Without a doubt. Yeah. And you mentioned empathy. Empathy and respect are 2 of the keys to building trust, right? If you feel trust, your brain is releasing oxytocin, that feel-good chemical, right?
Yeah.
So if I can tap into that and make you trust me, genuinely, like I'm not going to, screw you over, but if I can make you and your family trust me, we're building that rapport, we're building that trust, we're building that friendship that much faster, so that relationship will be that much stronger. Yeah. So when I tell you do this or don't do this, you will listen because I have your best interest at heart and your kids, and they can see it.
Mm. It's interesting, like reading your psychology with it all too.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's what I do in my job with anyone who's in here. But it's doubly fascinating when people were operating at like the highest levels of national security, and it's like again juxtaposing you and Andy. Like you talked about, you grew up, you didn't fit in, you didn't have any friends or whatever. You wanted friends though.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And you got really good at making friends. Like you were a late bloomer and then it was as a part of your career because you started so young. You made friends with everyone. Andy didn't have many friends, had a really difficult time as a child and everything, had a seminal event that really ended up fucking him over and everything. And then he became the opposite. He's the, fuck that. I don't need friends. Mm-hmm. I got my wife. I got my kids.
That's all he needs.
And it's like, honestly, he's got like me and Danny Jones, right? Because like, I guess we understand him in a way. But it's interesting to see how you guys did similar jobs in different ways from a similar origin story, but had the opposite reaction to the origin story to do the job in the opposite way. That's
interesting.
Just really...
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know that before I was talking with you, so I'm just like kind of live processing that.
It's like a therapy session.
Yeah, a little bit.
Do you have a couch I can lay on?
No. I literally don't own a couch, as you can tell.
I know. What's with that? Where's your furniture?
Listen, the money goes to him. That's what I do. I got mouths to feed here. You know, listen, don't say I don't put it all into my business.
It's true, but like you mentioned it, like I was a very lonely kid. Growing up, I was very, very lonely as well. The job with DIA, I was very lonely. And now I'm a single mom of 3. I'm very lonely. Like I am constantly still very, very lonely. But I think I've just kind of figured out how to embrace it. And I don't want other people to feel that way. So yeah, to your point, like empathy, it's my biggest demise.
Absolutely.
It's going to kill me one day.
Yeah, no, you'll be all right. I think you're hanging around. But you mentioned obviously several times now that it was 2011 when you went into Afghanistan. So you finished the 6 months in Mosul in 2009, 2010. You come back to America as a similar type middle between.
Yep.
I mean, you went to the farm after the first one. This time you're not going to the farm, but you're working the desk in America?
Sort of, yeah. No, this time when I came back, I was operational. So I was doing clandestine operations in other places. So not war zone, like real world type stuff.
Are you allowed to talk about that at all?
Not really.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
Fair enough. So you get the assignment to go to Afghanistan. Now, we kind of talked about this broadly, but this is when we're coming up on 10 years in to this war. We're like 9 years in probably when you're going. We still don't have Osama bin Laden. Again, it started off very well, but then took the eye off the ball. And now, like when I've talked to people who were in Afghanistan in the late 2000s going into 2010, 2011, it's like you could start to see the shift happening.
Yep.
Before you went, did you have information that that's where it's going?
Yeah, because I had been working the Afghan desk as well. I had time there. So I could see it from the desk point of view too. But you could also see like priority shifting with requirements and things like that.
Why do you think the Taliban at that point, not 2021, but at that point, was starting to have success, let's say winning over some hearts and minds?
I have a few theories. When I studied counterterrorism, one thing, especially that interested me about Hezbollah, was that they actually had a branch for hearts and minds, right? They built hospitals. They had, they supported their people. So there's a militarized, a political, and then there's like the do-good branch. Afghan history is so different, right? And the groups are so different. But I think there was a bit of that as well. I don't know. Because the people that I worked with, the sources I met, even the locals that worked, at our house where we were, like everyone was like staunchly opposed and really afraid.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's that. I don't know if maybe it's, again, that, like I mentioned before, that fear, you fall in line because you're just trying to preserve yourself, your livelihood, your family.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people act out of fear in ways that they normally wouldn't, just for self-preservation.
Yeah. Now, when you were assigned to go there again for DIA's purposes, I'd imagine the main mission was for the protection of the assets, our military on the ground, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So similar kind of thing to Iraq, as far as like, where are the IEDs? Where's Taliban headquartered? Yeah. Where do we got to stay away from? That kind of stuff?
Yeah, there was a lot of that. There was a little bit of strategic as well.
What do you mean?
So the Afghan government was newly formed. There were a lot of big personalities, former warlords, like General Dostum, for example.
Yeah.
Just people and players that we're still trying to figure out. What's their motivation? What's their end goal? Who are they in with? So that kind of intel was also very helpful.
Okay. Had you had any involvement or look through or anything in the years before you were in Afghanistan? Had you had any involvement in the Osama bin Laden investigation?
No.
How did you get involved?
Luck. So there was a walk. I think he was a walk-in, actually, that a friend of mine had met with. I think he met with him once or twice. And I remember my friend was leaving. He was with a different unit, but he was DIA. And he said, this guy can talk. He talks so much. And I was like, yeah, all right, yeah, okay. And he's like, but he claims that he knows where Osama is. Like, I can't get anything out of him. Like, we just sit there for hours and I don't know what he's saying. Like, he's just talking. Okay. So I had the meeting, first meeting. First meeting, I was like, oh my God, this guy talks so much. Like, please stop talking.
Who do you say he was?
So with this story, I've got people have some people have heard the story and they think I'm burning my source, but I change things.
Okay.
So he was very close with Osama. He had known him forever, like just, I don't know, they had been friends forever. He was kind of his right hand for a while. He knew about the attacks of September 11th before they happened, which, if you step back, the attacks on September 11th were pivotal for my career. I was actually, side note, I was working at Stanford University at the time, and I was driving to work, listening to the radio when the planes hit the towers, and I remember them breaking in and explaining, and I remember them saying bodies are falling out of the sky.
Yeah.
Right? Visceral memory.
1 mile away from here.
Right. When I got to work, I quit and I applied to grad school because I was angry at myself because I knew I wanted to do it and I was killing time. I wasn't actually fighting the good fight. I wasn't helping our country. And I was really angry at myself. Like, it was a personal failure. So when he brought up September 11th, and we talked about it, and we talked about his history, we talked about everything. It was very difficult for me, especially initially. Like, you're sitting across the table from someone who you hate, right? I hated everything that he stood for. I hated everything that he knew about. It was really, really difficult. But I'm not going to recruit someone if I hate them, right? You can tell when someone doesn't like you.
Oh, yeah.
And I was really frustrated because he did talk way too much. But over the course of months, and literally our meetings were like 9 hours. They were these marathon meetings. They were exhausting.
What would he talk about?
Oh my God. He just blathered on and on. He was okay. He was a very nice person. His motivations had changed, right? He was pro Al-Qaeda. He had things happen in his life where his motivations changed. He saw the light after September 11th. He was like, oh my God, what are we doing? He had family influence that was like, what are you doing? This is not okay. And he just kind of stepped back and realized, yeah, I might want Sharia. I might want all this stuff, but this is not the way to do it. Okay? So it took me a long time to just see him as a person now, not as his past, and try to respect him and try to have empathy and try to empathize with him in his situation and be in his shoes in his life that day, if that makes sense.
This is a guy who, I'm just using the example you just gave, who, wanted stuff like Sharia law, and he's talking to an American woman case officer, probably not wearing a hijab.
Yes. No, wasn't. Nope.
Interesting.
And we talked about that. There was one point because it was like eating me up. Why? Like, he talked to my friend. My friend was a dude.
Yeah.
And I straight up asked him, why are you talking to me? I am a white Western woman. I am the antithesis of everything that you believe in. I straight up asked him. Yeah. And of course, there's an interpreter. So he would talk for 4 hours. The poor interpreter's like, wait, I need to.
No English.
No English. No. And my interpreter and him were from very different parts of the world. This comes in later.
Okay.
So I asked him, and he kind of just sat back. I'll do this. He just sat back and he kind of got this little smirk and went, why not? And I was like, okay. Right? But we ended up building a really good rapport. Now, remember, I didn't have kids at the time. I had really wanted kids. He had 5,000 kids.
5,000?
He had a lot of kids. He had a lot of kids.
Like, what kind of number are we actually talking?
I don't know, probably in the dozens. He had a lot of kids.
He was busy.
He had a lot. Yeah, he was very busy.
Poor lady.
Yeah, or ladies.
Ladies, yeah. Doing that over there.
Yeah. He was probably exhausted. That's why he looks so tired all the time. Yeah. So it really, this operation pushed me outside of my comfort zone more than any other. Because I had worked with terrorists before. but this was different to me,
Yes.
right? And so I just spent a lot of time getting to know him, getting in his head, understanding the motivations, his vulnerabilities, his suitability, all of that. Just listening. He just wanted to be listened to in large. A lot of people, when you get them talking, they just want to talk, right? Yep. This is what you do for a living. So remember we had talked about money. And at the end of every meeting, I had a little envelope, and I would slide the envelope over and thank you.
Pay that to
so
your
much.
7,000 kids.
I know.
There you go. There's your child
support. Thank you so much. You're gonna have to feed a lot of people. And he would always very graciously push it back and say, "No, thank you. I don't want your money."
Oh.
And every time I was like, "Damn it," because I can't recruit him if he's not taking money.
Right. You were saying.
So I checked all the other boxes, but that, and it was killing me. It was killing me. And I was brainstorming with people, and we could not come up with a solution. I tried everything I could think of. And finally, it just hit me. So I had gone, side note, there's a world famous, evidently, maybe it's a Kabul famous palm reader. He's probably gone. He was very, very old. He's probably dead by now. He was very old. But one of my sources had taken me and a couple of people from my team to go meet this palm reader. And this palm reader, when I sit down, I give him my palm, and he has a ruler, and he's measuring, and he goes, "You will have 12 kids." And I was like, "What?" We got to go. So that was kind of a running joke with my team and I. And I had told this guy about the palm reader and that I was going to have 12 kids. And we started bonding over kids, that I wanted kids and that he had a bunch. And I realized this guy is a religious scholar, right? Education is super important to him. Yeah. And he has all these kids. And so the next meeting, we did the meeting, and I had my envelope, and I started to slide it over, and I stopped. When he went to like touch it to push it back, I kind of stopped him, and I was like, "Stop, don't touch it." And he looked at me, and I said, "Look, after this meeting, I want you to go down to the local bank, and I want you to open a bank account in your eldest son's name." Cultural thing, right? Open it in his name, and I want you to put this money in that bank account, but you are not allowed to touch it. This money is for your kids. And every time we meet, I'm going to give you money for your kids' college education. Oh. Not for you.
Oh, he took it.
He took it. And I recruited him the next meeting.
So when you say, this is where I get a little confused with the gray area, because you're having all these meetings with him. He's spilling for 9 hours. Maybe 3 of it is actually important. 6 of it is whatever.
Yes.
TMZ for Afghanistan.
Right.
But, isn't that, he
the
already
intel?
kind of is recruited.
So I can't task him if he's not recruited.
Okay.
So he knows where Osama is. I can't say, go take pictures.
Understood.
Or tell me the house number, or I can't task him.
What was it the first meeting that he told you, "I know where he is"?
No.
Do you
had
remember
kind of
that moment
danced
you
around.
did?
No. And, a lot of people say stuff like that, and you're like, all right, buddy. Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Is he in the room with us right now?
Right. So when people said stuff like that, you're like, okay, we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, we'll table that. Sure. But he had to volunteer stuff. So it was like he had to know what I wanted to ask. So I could guide, here are the requirements. Sure. Do you know anything about this? No. Well, it'd be great if you did. I'm not tasking. But next time, if you do, that would be super helpful.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a fine balance, but there are benefits to being recruited too. Plus, I could teach him tradecraft to protect himself from when he's sneaking around. Yeah. Mm. Yeah.
Okay, so you said you would dance around it and stuff. What months is this, by the way? Is this like January, February, March kind of deal?
Yeah, let me think back. Yeah. So 6 months, and I came home.
When did you get there? January 2011?
I want to say February. It might have been February or March when I left. When I got there. So yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So you're there when we get them on May 1. All right, so.
Yeah, I was there, and I just had meetings with him, where he was telling me, yeah, he's here. He's in Abbottabad.
When did he say Abbottabad for the first time? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was probably 3 or 4 meetings before they caught Osama.
How often were these meetings with him?
Weekly.
He just gets away for like 9 hours.
Yeah.
No one asks any questions.
Yeah, and I can't tell you why, but he had very good cover for doing it.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And he didn't live there. He lived somewhere else.
So when you first realized, whatever meeting it was, how close he was in proximity to Osama, we hear that everyone's seen Zero Dark 30, which composites a lot of characters, to be honest. But there were different people working on this at all the different agencies, and then there were like 3 women, I think, who were at CIA, who had been all over it for years, who ended up, being there with the Navy SEALs and getting it done. But like, where did you take that information, and how much up the chain of command of that investigation did you get read in on?
None. So everything in Intel is very compartmentalized, which is very handy for your own brain. So nothing. Everyone just had the requirements, and anyone that got information, we would put it in our intelligence report and feed it into the ether and hope to God somebody who needed it read it. Really. So analysts would give you feedback. So analysts who are tracking, obviously they say Osama, like they're pulling in the reports that are relevant, but they would grade you. So they would say, okay, this report is a B. We don't really believe your source. Maybe could you ask him this and this? Or you get an A. An A was always really good. It's like literally like getting an A. You're like, yes, I got an A. It means it was good intel. They used it. Sometimes they would tell you where they used it. It went to the Presidential Daily Brief, things like that. But the problem was with this guy is that, and again, remember I told you biggest success and biggest failure at the same time. Because my interpreter and him were from totally different regions of the world, their language and their slang and their tone and their everything was different. So when this guy, I heard Abbottabad. I wrote down Abbottabad with quite like 3 question marks. Abbottabad. I had never heard of it before, right? My interpreter was like, I don't know what he's saying. And by the way, this guy mumbled. He was a big mumbler. He would talk forever and mumble, and you couldn't understand the mumbles a lot of times. He was like, he's mumbling again. I can't understand him. And I was like, but I heard Abbottabad. And we'd clarify, like we'd ask clarifying questions. We did map tracking. We asked for pictures, like everything you're supposed to do. But nobody believed us. They kept saying he was making it up. The feedback I got is he's making it up. And so I worked with NGA, National Geospatial Agency. We had an NSA person embedded. We took it to CIA. I shopped it around trying to get someone to like, is there an analyst that can give me questions for him that you want to know? Like, are we on the right track? Like, and people, it was almost like half disbelief and then just miscommunication. We don't know what he's saying.
God,
it was crazy. So frustrating. And so I woke up one morning and turn on the news as I'm getting dressed, and there it is, like, we captured Osama bin Laden, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, in Abbottabad. He was in Abbottabad. Like, literally exactly how I'd spelled it in my notes. And I had a meeting with that guy. It was like a day or 2 later. And he came in and he was like ear to ear. He was like grinning. And he goes, we got him. We got him. See, I told you. And I was like, yes, you did. You did.
So you putting that report, even though you're not getting looked through and whatever, you putting in that report in maybe March, something like that, you're one of the people that then it zeroes in like, oh shit, we got this from multiple angles that he's there.
Yeah, so those analysts are compiling, and if they're having multiple source reporting, he's got to be there.
Yeah, so you're like one of the 4.
So I'm sure it contributed, but I got 0 feedback and 0. So in my head, I'm like, I failed. It wasn't me.
Well, it worked.
Whatever happened worked, and kudos to the teams that got him.
What was the... Again, I'm not going off Zero Dark 30. I'm trying to go off of some of the other stuff where I've seen people around it who were interviewed on it. Who was the guy that they got to? His courier? Was that it?
The courier.
Yeah. What was that? What was the story there again? Do you remember that?
I think they arrested. Isn't he still in Gitmo?
Probably. But they were like tracking him, or they were able to follow him there.
They had to have multiple avenues to get this guy. So you're having multiple sources reporting. There was also the vaccination thing, if you heard about.
What was that?
Where they had somebody offering free vaccinations in the area.
For the kids?
And they could test like DNA and stuff. Oh. There's all kinds of cool stuff. And then like my dude was like taking pictures of it. I mean, we had photos.
Oh, wait. Okay, hold on a minute. You sent him to Abbottabad?
No, he went. This is before he was recruited. He went.
And he took pictures?
And he took pictures.
And he brought that into the meeting.
And he brought that in. He had pictures along the drive. He's like, and here's an overpass. Here's this tree. Turn right at the tree.
So you saw the building that he ended up. You had the whole thing.
I didn't have the house. I had pictures of the area and getting there. He was showing us where to go.
Was he like hidden camera kind of stuff, or
no,
was he
they're
straight
so
up
blatant,
like
blatant.
a tourist?
They all have those little like Nokia.
Yeah, so he's like, oh,
yeah,
just chilling like he's a tourist.
And yes, and there are pictures where he's standing, and someone took his picture, but he did it. He's like, oh, I had someone take my picture, or like
with this in the background, like, yeah, get a little to the left, please.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, can you see the building?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Now, was he meeting with Osama?
No. He had already had a falling out, so he wasn't tight with him anymore.
Are you able to say why they fell out?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I kind of figured. But it's someone who knew him for a very long time.
Knew him very well for a very long time.
What did he say about Osama? Like what? Obviously, you said after 9/11, he was like, wait, this isn't the way.
Yeah.
But what did he say about him as a guy? Like, why were they, other than believing in maybe Sharia and stuff like that, like what made him so magnetic?
I never asked, but it was interesting talking to him because it was like someone he revered and respected, but also didn't agree with anymore. So you could see conflict, like internal conflict. I don't know how to describe it. But because of that conflict, I never went deep in that because I didn't want to upset him. Also, I was still very, very cautious, the male-female relationship. Right. And for him, especially being a religious scholar, like that's a big no-no, right? So I was really careful what I asked him and how I asked him things. I didn't ever want to offend him,
Wait, actually, I'm a little confused on that. I can understand, like, some of the personal questions and things like that because of the male-female relationship, but what makes a difference between you or a dude sitting in your seat asking a question about his relationship with Osama?
Yeah, I just didn't feel like it was right. For example, like, because he was a mullah, and I am not a Muslim, like, I gave him as a gift this beautiful, beautiful Quran. It had like hand-painted artwork in it and stuff like that. I couldn't touch it. So when we bought it, my interpreter bought it, we wrapped it up. And so when I gave it to him, I was like, this gift is for me, but I know I can't touch it as a non-believer or whatever. Yeah. So here, so-and-so is going to hand that to you. And he appreciated that. So there was just like religious and culturally, I just felt like I had to walk a really careful line.
Sure.
He might have been happy to give me intel, but that doesn't mean he was happy to like really let me get in on his head and some of that stuff. So I was just very, very cautious.
Well, you were saying that before you got to Afghanistan and this guy became a source, you hadn't been involved in the Osama bin Laden investigation. But had you, he was the ghost for almost especially almost a decade there, longer than that technically, but at least since 9/11, almost a decade. And it's like the most wanted man in the world. Had you studied up on him?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, remember I got my master's in counterterrorism.
Right. So, but you did a lot of focus on him specifically and his whole history and everything.
Yeah. In fact, when I was, how old was I? 18 or 19, I sailed around the world on a small cruise ship called Semester at Sea when I was in college. Yeah. It's called the Semester of Sex. Yes. It was awesome.
I wasn't going to say
Not for me. I didn't have sex.
Yeah. Okay.
I just thought about it. But so going on that even, one of our stops was Kenya. And right before that is when the embassies in Kenya and Tanzania were bombed.
Yes.
And I don't remember this at all, but my friend reminded me. So I was I was always fascinated by terrorism and why. Why are people doing this? And when September 11th happened, my friend Susie, she lives in New York, Susie either emailed me or texted me or something, and she said, you were right. And I was like, what was I right about? And she said, Osama bin Laden. When we were in Kenya, because we went and we saw the embassy, it was all blown, like the stuff, like paid your respects, We saw it. She goes, you told me all about Osama bin Laden, and you told me they were going to hit us in the home. Like, you told me. And I was like, oh, shit, I did?
You said that in like 98, 99.
Oh, wow, I'm good. I didn't say they were going to fly a plane in the World Trade Center, but I was telling her that, if anyone could do it, they would attack here in the U.S. And she was like, you were totally right. And for me, like, because I didn't remember it, it was validating. It was like, okay, I am good at this. It just kind of egged me on to keep doing it.
Yeah. I mean, the whole history. I mean, he's one of like 57 kids or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
And Mohammed bin Laden, his father, fascinating,
Yeah.
a lot of money,
Yeah.
but fascinating guy, espionage wise.
Right.
Like, I don't know that he was like a full blown spy or something, but he was an asset for probably a lot of different places.
Mm-hmm. He
Very,
had good access.
yeah.
He had a lot of good access.
Oh my God. It's just very strange where Osama came from, and then I mean, obviously the Mujahideen in the 80s shaped
Big
him.
influence. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. But like the family he came from, you wouldn't expect that.
No.
Because he had access to a lot of wealth.
Yeah, and you would think you'd grow up wanting for nothing.
Yeah.
What would his grievances be? You know?
Yeah.
It's like a American rich kid. Like, what's wrong with you? You have everything you want.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, you look at it's interesting. You were telling your friends in 98, 99 about this guy and what he was going to do. When you look at the history of it, and as the people who were there discuss it, they're always talking about how it took a while for the Clinton administration to get it, but then they got it, right? Like they when those bombings were happening, they're like, oh, okay, all right,
real.
This guy's a problem.
Yeah.
And then you have a whole new administration come in, and they're like, what's this?
But that happens every 4 years for
Yeah.
everything. Like, pick a topic. Russia,
Yeah.
Ukraine, China. Like, it's the same cycle. And I see the intelligence community feels it, You're supposed to be impartial, and you are. But, man, those politics, the pressure to produce on whatever their priority is palpable, no matter where you are. It absolutely, absolutely impacts missions.
The other side of it, though, not that I like politicians, because I don't at all, but, it's two to tango in this kind of relationship. And this gets talked about a lot. I'd love your thoughts on this. You have the politicians who are there to get elected. Well, let's separate them in two categories for a second. You have the House of Representatives and the Senates who, they don't have any fucking term limits, so they can be like 90 with their teeth falling out and still be there. But they still have to at least do things on the basis of trying to get elected on some upcoming Tuesday in November, which causes problems. Then in the executive branch, where the intelligence community has daily direct back and forth, this is where decisions are being made. Every 4 years, or at the very least every 8 years, an entire new administration comes in, entire new ideas, whatever. And there's the old thought that, like, well, the espionage community is the most powerful tool there is because they have dirt on everyone. And the guy who comes in there, the new president, the people who go and give him the first PDB,
Yep.
they were there before he got there. They're going to be there after he leaves.
Right.
So the question is, like, who really does run the country? And I just look at it as like a psychological experiment of like, well, what do you expect? These people got to exist, and they know they're going to exist after this guy's there. So that's just
But they've got to play the game.
Yeah, they play the game, but like they have their hands on all the triggers.
Yeah.
The president doesn't have anything without the intelligence from those people. So effectively, if they don't like a guy, or in the future, if there's a woman in there, if they don't like her, don't like him, they can be like, oh, well, we're not going to tell them about this thing. We're going to steer clear of that.
I'm sure stuff gets communicated different ways or different channels. Yeah. But I think anybody who's doing that job, they're mission oriented too, and they want to do the right thing. But it's funny, like you talk about like the PDB, when each president comes in, they have to adjust how they brief it. One president wants only visuals. One president wants metrics. One president wants paragraph summaries. One president doesn't want anything. He just wants you to tell me what's important. So you're adjusting how you write these up and how you present it depending on that personality.
Yeah. It's a hard job.
It's a hard job. I wouldn't want it.
For sure.
No way.
But do you remember where you were exactly when, well, I think you said it actually, when you found out about the Osama
Yeah.
thing, you were watching the news?
I was half naked, getting dressed, watching CNN, and half crying, half cheering.
It's got to be a pretty good feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good.
I kind of wonder today if the reaction to that, like we had, would be the same. It was a very uniting moment when that happened. People were in America. That was a special night.
It was. September 11th in general, too. Like, I can't think, I mean, maybe world wars, but when else has the U.S. been so united, right?
Agreed.
But it's sad that it takes travesty and horrible loss of life in any capacity for the country to get together and be one. United we stand, right?
Yeah. I say this all the time and I hate it, but like you have the terrorist attacks like September 11th and Pearl Harbor, which, you know, are horrible. But like outside of the war of 1812, this country's never been invaded, and it really fucking shows.
Right.
Because people, the problems that we spend so much time fighting about, when you look at the patterns of our society, those bullshit problems, whatever they may be in a given era, happen the most when we are the farthest away from tragedy or like major in-your-face war.
Yeah.
And it's so sad to me that it takes something like that. Like, you turn on the news, the shit we're fighting over, if, God forbid, if something happened to that skyline tomorrow, gone.
Yeah. No, I agree.
It's gone.
I agree. Yeah. It was really hard coming home from a deployment. You've seen a lot. Maybe you've had near-death experiences. I've had a few. You've done things that you know saved lives. And then you come home and like I would come home and you're walking around and you see people like chit-chatting at Starbucks and like girls like, oh my God, you know, like I would get mad that these people did not know what others were doing for their country and for them to be able to go sit at Starbucks and gossip.
Yep.
You know, it was a very hard adjustment each time. And it never got easier. I'd come home, you know, fourth one, I'm like, all right, I'm going to be fine, you know, and it wouldn't. It would just still hit you, you know. And then when we withdrew from Afghanistan, like all of that stuff, like you get these reminders.
Yes. Because you know what you know. You can't change that.
Yeah.
You've seen it.
Yeah.
And sadly, that's just a human psychological thing as old as time.
Yeah.
When what you don't see, not even blaming people, it's just how it is.
Yeah, they're ignorant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I see it in other situations that aren't warfare, but it's other problems around the world. I have friends like my friend Paul Rosalie in the Amazon. Finally now, like, he's blowing up online as like a celebrity. But for the first 17 years, he'd be screaming at people with videos of everything burning, saying, here's what's happening.
It's real.
Here's what we got to do to stop it. And people are like, oh, that's so terrible. Anyway, I'll take a medium and he'll take a large. You know?
Right. It's because it doesn't affect them. It doesn't impact them immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard. But when you said you met with the guy and he was like, oh, we got him.
Yeah. I felt like such an asshole. I'm like, yes, you did.
Thank you for that. But like, you were using him as a source, I would imagine, for other things too, right?
Yeah.
So he still had a lot of
Yes.
use after that.
Yeah.
Is that someone that, I mean, you're not involved anymore, allegedly, but is that someone that you think probably is still a source today?
I doubt it, honestly. Just knowing what I know about him and his location, and I don't know that he would have the access anymore that they needed. Or if he's still alive, honestly.
Oh, you don't even know that?
No.
So you don't have any contact?
I have no contact.
Okay.
That's a hard thing, too. I don't know if anyone's ever talked about that, but like sometimes you get close to these people, and it's not like you're falling in love with your sources, right? But you respect people, and after spending time with their family and their kids and hanging out, like you care about them and their well-being, right? That's your job to make sure that they're safe. And then when you leave, you shut off contact. You cannot contact them again.
Always?
Not always. It's gone. It's gone. So when ISIS came in, for example, I had a source who was recruited. I spent a lot of time with him and his family. And when ISIS came in, he was absolutely, without a doubt, he was killed. I have zero question, just based on what he did for a living, where he went, like, and knowing his wife and his two boys, like, it's still, like, if I think about it, I'll probably tear up. Like, I still feel guilty and I still feel bad. But I know that he made a big difference.
It's really hard to see people talk about it. The one recently that we saw was the Afghanistan thing, and you see how many U.S. servicemen, U.S. intelligence, U.S. Defense Department, whatever it is, people were so horrified at the fact that so many great people who had entrusted us were now left behind there. So much so that, you know, I had Safi Ralph in here, who actually is Afghani and came here and then worked with the special forces, like joined the military and everything, and now has been rescuing people out of there. But like, you know, we were able to get some people out, but there's so many people, it's like, oh, they probably got beheaded by the Taliban.
Yeah, 100%. And excuse me, there's a project I'm working on now, actually. If anyone's ever heard of the Hacking Games, it's a fabulous initiative, if you will.
Okay.
So tying back to Afghanistan, there's this guy who worked for the Afghan government when the Taliban took over again, when we departed. And he had access to these files that it was a database of all of the Afghans who had cooperated with coalition forces. Excuse me. Sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
Biometric data, everything. So millions and millions of Afghanis were in this database. And this guy risked his life to go back and wipe out that database.
Whoa.
The Taliban's been hunting him for 3 years. He's still in Afghanistan.
He's
and
alive.
We're trying to get him out. But it's stories like that. Like, this is a modern day Schindler. Like, this guy saved millions of lives.
Amazing.
Right? And we haven't gotten him out yet. It's stuff like that that doesn't sit right with me. There are people that maybe they weren't giving me intel, maybe they weren't saving lives, but there are people that worked with us that cooked my eggs or washed people's laundry or kept the garden nice, right? Those people still helped us. They helped us
Yes.
in support capacity, and they're still there too.
Yep.
So stuff like that really bothers me.
And any help that's given could be viewed as you're the enemy.
You're done.
But it's also, so we were talking about Sean Ryan. Do you know Sean?
Never met him.
Okay. So great guy. And you had said you saw him on my show. Like, he just really good dude who has an amazing show and covers all kinds of things that are directly related to what he did. You know, does it from his point of view. But he's been tracking a story that I think started with some lady he had on who I believe was in CIA. I don't remember her name. But she was saying, what was it, Alessi? Like 60 to 80 million a month is going to the Taliban from the U.S.? Something like that?
I don't know.
Can we look that up?
A lot.
Sean Ryan, money to Taliban. I'd love to get the number right, but people Google that so you can check it at least. And he just went and talked to Masood's son in Europe. And he was saying that this is happening too. And so when I hear, I'm just relating this back. When I hear stories like, we're still trying to get X out or this person out, obviously the Taliban's awful. Yeah, that was the first guy. This guy, Legend, who wasn't allowed to put his face on, but he was the first guy to talk about it. And then I think Sarah, that's her name, Sarah Adams, the CIA lady, she confirmed it. And then Masood confirmed it. So when I hear that we can't get this person out or that person out, not that the Taliban's not still horrible, they are. But unlike in 2001 where they were unreachable, sending us to voicemail,
Right.
now there's a conversation with these scumbags at least. There's money potentially going to them. So I don't understand why they, it's the reason they're going to kill these people is because they don't want them there anyway.
Right.
So why, if especially with people that are like extra importance, why are we not like, you give us that person, motherfucker?
Yeah.
Why is that not happening?
Well, we definitely don't want them to know where this guy is, number one. So they can't give him to us because they would not give him to us. They would kill him and his family.
Even with the money going to
Even
them.
with the money. Yeah. Accidents happen.
Yeah. That's why you just can't deal with terror groups. I don't know. I don't know what the strategy was there. And that's been multiple administrations looking at this strategy. It's like, what are we doing?
It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. It's disheartening. I mean, you go and you do all this good work and you think you're like fighting the good fight. And then at the end you're like, well, shit, like we're back to square one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what did you think when you saw the image? I mean, the imagery was as bad as the actual result, if not even worse when you look at it. But when you see the imagery from August 15th, 2001, and Afghanistan falls, this is a place where you spent time, you did missions, you had intel ops, you've laid out some of them on this show today. Like, what's going through your head when you see 20 years to circle, the ring goes right back to the beginning?
I've been through that gate. I've been to that airport a million times. It was very surreal, and I cried. I'm not going to lie. I cried. I once had a boss say there's no crying and spying, but I cried.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, very emotional for me to see those images. We failed. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
We could do better.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear someone say that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's part of the issue. There's been especially in Afghanistan, there's been a real lack of accountability there.
Yeah.
I'm not one of these
It's
people.
a lot of this.
Yeah.
A lot of this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not one of these people that likes to say we need a head on the stake no matter what. But I am saying, like, organizationally,
Right.
who fucked up, just in general.
Right.
Don't put a name on it. Just put the name of the agency or the place or the desk or whatever. Let's fix that.
Well, and like, can we make sure we don't do this again?
Yes.
Please? Like, did anyone do a tabletop exercise? Did anyone do an AAR?
Right.
Do we know where we screwed up so we don't do it again? That's the question.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we do keep making similar mistakes over and over again.
Absolutely. And you were also, as we laid out, you were in Iraq a bunch, and you got out of DIA late 2013. Is that right? Or 2014.
2014, February 2014.
Whoa! So you get out
Yeah.
right before there's literally heads coming off of necks.
Yeah. Good timing, right?
Yeah. Did you see that coming at that point?
No.
Like that bad?
No, I didn't. I mean, you knew it was bad, but I don't think anyone could predict how horrible it really was.
Did you have an itch to get back in? When
Yes.
You saw?
Yeah. I still talk about it, right? This is something that was such a huge, it was my life.
Yes.
It was all I had. And so leaving it was really, really hard to walk away. I miss the job. I don't miss the paperwork. I don't miss the admin. I don't miss some of the assholes I worked with. I miss the job tremendously. I miss working with people that wanted to make a difference. I miss saving lives. And when I left and I started with Merck, like you mentioned, it was really hard shifting from I save lives for a living to I save this company money. It was very, very hard, very tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, it's everyone wants to make more money in their career and stuff, but there's a real, like, how you make money too is important to a lot of people. And it's like the adrenaline of the stakes being high seems to be a big part of it for people like you.
Yeah, adrenaline, power. You could argue power. Any of us who are case officers, there's a degree of power. You're in control.
Yes.
Right? But also being in the know, right? Knowing what's going on in the world, knowing what's behind the curtain, all of that. There's a sense of loss for that too.
All your security clearances are gone when you left?
No, I've still got clearance.
You still have clearances. But on new stuff coming in, you don't have clearances.
No one calls me. It's like, let's tell Shawnee.
Right.
No
That's
one
what
cares
I mean.
about me
When
now.
I say that, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.